Shut up and sit down.
Welcome one and all to HJBC for coverage of the penultimate round of this year's ChampCar iRacing series. Round 15 of 16. Coming towards the end of the year, we're coming towards the end of the championship, and critically, points are tied for the lead between Mark McCormick and Alex Albert. They are going to have to battle it out for good results with the last two races of the season, starting here at Barber Motorsports Park in the Mazda NC MX-5. Always a very dynamic car, one of the best handling probably that we get all year. Not necessarily as fuel efficient as the Jetta or as powerful as the street stock, but always some pretty close racing from these spec category cars. David Haynes, I'm joined by Devin Peters. We've got Michael Derby behind the scenes with the production and everything, and our replays and such later on. That's what makes this broadcast possible. So Devin, what a critical juncture in this championship it's been. It's been a good year, I think, overall. Some really close and some really exciting races more often than not. Some really strong grids all the way through as well.
It's everything NASCAR wishes it had in a championship, you know? Every single race has mattered.
It's playoffs,
it's going to come right down to the it's going to come right down to the wire here. And this qualifying session is setting things up for a real spicy finish.
So as always, it's a 1 hour race today that's coming up, and there will be a required pit stop for fuel to make it to the end. But what's always been interesting in the last couple of races we've had in this car is you have a longer pit stop if you change tires, but there can be quite a significant advantage to those new tires on this car. I think that's going to be even more magnified here at Barber, where there's a lot of tight corners, some medium speed chicanes, and you are almost always doing something, turning one way or the other. It is a very intense track where it doesn't let the drivers rest, and therefore it doesn't let the tires rest much either.
Yeah, and a lot of, it's really a driver's track, because there's a lot of corners where little nuancey things can give you a lot of speed, and we're sort of seeing that here on the timing screens. The lead of the pack, Mark McCormick, a 39.4, 7/10 ahead of third place, and 5/10 ahead of second place. He is flying and really showing off why this NC platform is starting to become so popular, I think, in the real ChampCar series.
Absolutely. Oh, a little bit touchy there in qualifying. That's one of those corners where it's kind of blind as you approach. And then as you come over the crest, you find the track keeps turning to the right, and you can be all the way off the grass like Alex Albert and John Hurley were. They are thinking with 6 minutes left in the session, at least Alex Albert's thinking, time to put some new tires on to see what I can drag out of this car right at the end of this session. Track ought to be cooling off a little bit because we're racing through the afternoon. I guess it's sort of into the early evening, and we are simulating the 11th. Oh my gosh, is that going to be the 11th of December?
The 11th of December, that is. And
so early sunset then.
Yeah, and chilly out there too. I mean, 22 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and only going to get chillier as the race goes on. Got to think.
Yeah, very mild Alabama weather, but what that does mean is it's going to be quite dark, I think, by the end of the race. The drivers are talking about some of the glare in qualifying as that sun gets low with this late in the year time. Tom Ellison making his, I think, first appearance this year. There's a lot of unique and flashy paints out there, and he's got a reflective as a HJ logo I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. And there's a driver that's done a lot of laps around this place. He's done a number of HPD events. So we'll see if that translates into some performance out here today for him. And a couple other familiar names running pretty hot in the top 10. Nick Love, of course, series regular. Keith Carlson up there in the points, though not battling for the overall championship. He's 5th overall as it stands. Josh Soto also played spoiler for this car last time we saw it out at Laguna Seca. He's currently qualified in 6th place. But it'll be interesting to see if once he gets an idea of what Mark McCormick's doing for lines around here, if suddenly he finds the pace that he showed the last time we were out.
Yeah, no doubt. So who's improving towards the end of the session? I think Fowether just completed first flying lap of a run, but missed out on improving by about 4/10. Alex Albert's about to start a new flying lap, and he'll probably only get 2 more in this session. He's towing around John Hurley at the moment, so I don't think a slipstream would be super beneficial around here compared to some other tracks, but he's not going to get one. Is defending champ Alex Albert.
No.
And that's that lap gone.
Yeah, I was listening to some of the drivers in the pre-race though, and it does sound like, to me at least, some of them were thinking that the draft would be a pretty significant factor and might explain some of the gap that we're seeing to Mark out at the front.
Well, interesting, but I think McCormick has parked it for this qualifying session. It's most everyone else still out on track, but I don't think he's going to get out and really get around the way the session is at the moment. And also, he'd be leaving the pit lane with a lot more fuel on board than some others who've been out here pounding it around for a couple minutes or quite a bit of this session. One more improvement.
Not sure if you caught this. I was looking at the driver entry list, and Alex Albert, of course, being the past champion, is entitled to the number 1 if he registers as the first guy into the session. But I can't help but notice that Mark McCormick has set his number to number 1 and has registered before Alex. So Alex is number 2 today, and Mark McCormick's number 1. Always like to see a little bit of psychological warfare going on.
Fowether wasn't able to improve on that lap. Alex Albert, we know, was off the track at the start of this one, so he's probably had to abandon that and then think about this as his last chance, last-ditch opportunity to try to improve in qualifying. In towards turn 1, the track immediately drops away and it makes the car want to understeer, but he's kept it on the pavement. And then into this sort of turn 2, turn 3, where the track keeps on going around to the right. One of those places that is going to eat up the front tires and will make a big difference in the racing between who takes tires and who doesn't. Some of those longer corners like there, like turn 7, and you've also got to think that final sector where it seems like the track just keeps turning to the right as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the tires go away, those left rights and the chicanes on the back straight are going to become very dangerous because you go a little offline and have to overheat the tires a bit to get it back. All of a sudden, turn 11 and turn 12, that last chicane are going to be real challenging. Alex Albert runs it a little bit wide.
Gets in a bit hot across the curbs and then sort of pushes wide for 7B or whatever on earth they call that one. He hasn't given up on this lap just yet. John Hurley, though, 8th in qualifying at the moment. Has dropped back a little bit from him as well.
And I've just seen Simon Fowether pull into the pits. I got to assume he's calling it quits. Nick Love's on a hot lap as well. We'll watch the end of Alex's and we'll see where Nick goes up.
That's turn 13 there. No, turn 12. Turn 12 where you approach and you've got to be turning as you come over the crest because then the track drops away pretty quick there.
Nick Love was on a hot lap until he rear-ended his teammate who was trying to get a draft off of. You can see that smiley face bumper. This car on the old damaged model. So I think like most of the other cars that we race in this series, but gets a very distinctive decal on the rear end when it gets hit.
So it's qualifying over for some. Checkered flag about to be waved in 10 seconds. Your top 2 are parked. Nick Love currently 4th. Well, he was parked. He's going to think about getting out of the lane and he's not. He's not going to have enough time for that.
Yep. And John Hurley and Alex Albert looking like maybe the last two that are going to cross the line. Just seeing Neil Hancock pull off track, give up on his lap.
Shane Cameron could improve as he's about to come across the line, and the answer is his best was 41.5 and he's just laid down 41.8 apparently, so no improvement there for Shane Cameron, who still sits in 15th.
Keith Carl's coming in through 7A and 7B and has laid a pretty nice line through there. He's heading down the back straight now in that 851 car. Takes the first and the second of that chicane. Turn 9 and 10 there.
Flat out across there in these cars, but this is where things get more challenging. This right-hander so tempting to get out a little too wide across that crest and end up in trouble. Not so for Keith Carlson, who's been one of the more sort of consistent top 5, top 10 finishers of this season. And he's caught off that lap as he goes from pit entry, but he's been pretty consistent so far this year.
That almost looked like pit lane practice to me because he lined that up really, really nicely, which will be a factor in this race.
Absolutely. Tough pit entry here as it also kind of comes downhill and tightens through a left-hander. It sort of resembles a street circuit with Armco both sides before you get to the start of that pit lane speed limit. So time to be won and lost attacking that entry. Not so much on the exit, I wouldn't think. But as always, you know, it's racing conditions until you hit that those cones that are at the start of the pit lane speed limit. Checkered flag still waving. Almost everyone has crossed the line. I think that's about to lock in qualifying. 26 drivers, as Peter Zhang was a very last minute arrival in the paddock. Hopefully he gets to start.
We have seen Zhang out for a fair number of races.
Just counting out the clock at the moment, and then run through the grid here. Round 15 of ChampCar iRacing Series at Barber Motorsports Park. And the last time we're going to see this Mazda MX-5, because the final round at Sebring is going to be in the street stock. This farewell to the Mazda, which Mazda specialists are going to come out on top. That qualifying grid there actually looks not accurate. For great shame, you know, for the season finale, maybe we'll get on top of it. But let me run you through it as they're lining up on the grid for the formation pace lap. Mark McCormick is on pole and he's going to be sharing that front row with Simon Fowether. The second row is going to be Alex Albert and Nick Love. That's still not right. Oh. Next row is Keith Carlson, and he's with Joshua Soto, who's pretty strong and had some good race pace in this car at Laguna Seca. Maybe some comparisons to be made between Barber and Laguna Seca. A lot of elevation change, some blind corners, and yeah, very much a handling course. Then you've got Andrew Kosick and John Hurley. Tom Ellison and Ian Giebler are the top 10.
Yeah, John Hurley, a name we haven't seen quite as consistently as we have in seasons past, but certainly familiar to the series. Going outside of the top 10, we got Tim Wire in his familiar cheesy helmeted livery. Neil Hancock in 12th place. David Warden in 13th. Jay Sofianek, 14th. Shane Cameron in 15th. Scott Grinnell in 16th. Aaron Thorpe in 17th. Greg Vandevert, 18th. 19th, David Palermo. His outside not filled yet, but that's Lee Muleman who'll be showing up there. Troy Isidore in 21st. Charles Kowalczyk in 22nd. Another one of those Love Racing cars with the distinctive livery. Jonathan Patterson will be lining up 23rd in a green car. Mark Kruger's got one of the fancier liveries on the grid in 24th. Jared Cubitt, 25th. And if Peter Zhang takes the grid, and it looks like he will be, he is in 26th.
The generic sedan pace car pulls away. Always sort of weirds me out looking at it. It's like, you know, if you ate something too spicy before bed, the kind of car you dream of. That sort of looks car-ish, familiar, but individually not particularly placeable. Anyway, we do get the full formation lap here. One thing to be careful of is fuel consumption is in effect from the minute they drop down onto the grid. They were idling on the grid, they were burning fuel. They're driving around for the formation lap here, they're burning fuel.
And you can hear with your ears which ones are sort of aware of it. The real vets are turning the car on and off, doing all those NASCAR-y tricks to try and keep the thing from sucking down a little extra fuel on this lap.
Put the clutch in on your way to a downhill, why not?
I had plenty of those here.
Mark Mccormick giving plenty of space to that pace car as they came through what's going to be one of the interesting passing zones, that hairpin there at turn 5. You always see some sometimes very skilled and sometimes very questionable overtaking moves there. Can very easily get in too hot as right at the start of the braking zone, the track immediately dips downhill and makes it even tougher to get the car stopped. Some drivers bravely get down the inside and make a move there, and sometimes you overshoot and the other driver can cut back underneath. You see that happen with great regularity there at Barber. The other place you might see some overtakes is, of course, in towards turn 1. Drive off the final corner can be difficult, catching some of the grass potentially on the outside with no paved runoff there. So if you get a better run, you can sometimes overtake down the inside at turn 1 as well. Those are the places to watch today, I think.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I'm keeping an eye on Mark Mccormick here. Last round, he had a very, we'll call it wily start. He really hung back and kind of caught people off guard. I'm curious to see what the other drivers are going to do, because I know that there was a few that were complaining about it in the chat after the last one, and we see him hanging back more and more here. Fowether not really giving him an inch there.
Yep, so our two title rivals, one of them's got pole position, the other one is starting immediately behind him. Coming through the final sector, 60 minutes on the clock, the pace car is in. When is your pole sitter, Mark Mccormick, gonna jump and get us racing for round 15 of the ChampCar iRacing series? I think it's now, and Alex Albert comes right along with him as well. Simon Fowether caught a little bit napping, he's gonna lose out, but it's down towards turn 1, a slipstream from Alex Albert, middle of the road, Mark McCormick thinking about defending. There is $1,500 US in ChampCar credit on the line, and McCormick is gonna hold on to the race lead.
Keep it clean through there, but things are getting a little spicy behind them.
Absolutely, they will be. Tires cold for the start of the race. It takes a little bit to build up that temperature, and it is a cold track as well, so that'll take a little while longer as well. Up front, pretty tidy, but what's going on deeper in the field?
They're going 3 wide just behind them. Nick Love wisely backs out of the inside and gives a little bit of space to Keith Carlson and John Hurley. And a little bit further down the field, I'm seeing the most mint car of Andrew Kosick. Sorry, not Andrew Kosick. Yeah, that's Andrew Kosick running 2 wide with Tom Ellison.
Towards turn 7 for the first time, and there's a bit of 2 wide. John Hurley down the inside of Nick Love, kind of backs out of it, then goes for it again and is going to make contact. That's going to half spin Love around in a very precarious place. I think Ian Giebler was already off there as well, so a couple drivers losing out big time. That was a little cheeky, a little ambitious from John Hurley. That's such a difficult braking zone and a difficult place to go 2 wide with that chicane leading into a hairpin. Yeah,
Nick Love was off, and also Ian Giebler was off. Mostman took all 4 tires off and must have taken a slowdown as well, because he dropped back a bunch of spots. So that's Andrew Kosick there. But things seem to be straightening out a little bit further down the field. Tim Wire trying to give back a slowdown as well, holding up some cars. Shane Cameron comes around him a little deeper in the field.
Oh, and Andrew Kosick contact there with Neil Hancock, both of them in the final sector, probably getting a bit of damage. Neil Hancock apologizes for that, but I think Kosick's got some damage, and he's already passed the pit entry there as well, so he's probably going to have to limp it round another time.
Yeah, he's going to be limping that whole lap, and that car is crabbing badly. He's going to be really struggling to make up any ground there. He might be able to get enough fuel in the thing to make it to the end, but either way, he's going to lose a lot of time on this lap. Meanwhile, back at the front, Alex Albert is hanging on with Simon Fowether close behind him. And Mark McCormick starting to show off some of that pace that we were talking about in qualifying. He's already got 3 or 4 car lengths on the field.
You want to try to break away by about a second or so, and he's right on the fringes of that. Albert trying to stay in contact. But Fowether and Carlson have had a pretty good start here as well. So they are maybe applying a little bit of pressure, really, really bombing it into 7A and 7B. Catches some of the grasses, Alex Albert. That's not going to be a great drive off. Can they go flat out too wide here? Fowether wants his second place back. It's where he qualified, and risk and reward here. Moves up right in front. Fowether takes second place back. Albert back in a third, and Keith Carlson watching on very, very closely in fourth position.
Oh, and that's heartbreak for Alex Albert. He really needed to hold that spot if he wanted to have a shot at Mark Mccormick, but that's rapidly evaporating as Mark Mccormick in that shiny Whammo car drives off into the distance.
Now it's Carlson's turn to catch a little bit of the grass, but he catches the slide and is no longer going to be putting quite as much pressure on here. McCormick's lead, though, extends, and it extends significantly. He is 1.4 clear of Fowether, 1.8 clear of Albert.
Few big gainers there off the start. Jay Sofianek and Shane Cameron are both up 7 spots already. Not to be outdone, Greg Vandervert's up 8. And Peter Zhang, remember him from last place on the grid? Yeah, he's up 14 spots to 12th place already.
Yeah, big mover from the very back of the grid, Peter Zhang, probably looking for a couple more as well. No representative time to make comparison from him yet, as he catches a little bit of the grass, and in the background there was Aaron Thorpe super deep on the brakes there, nearly creating some contact at that hairpin where you've got the view of the spider.
Yeah, turn 5 is kind of tricky because you can make a lot of time diving it in on the way in, but you can also make a lot of time by rolling a little extra through and getting a run on the way out. So there really tends to be 2 different approaches, like more than most at that corner, and you see really big differentials in terms of strategy with guys going through there. Alex Albert's back and sort of making moves on Simon Fowether up at the front, peeking out at turn 11, but tucks back in behind as they go through turn 14, 15.
Something here gets called Charlotte's Web, and I don't know which particular corner in that final sector. They are really constantly turning all the way through there, and that's what will start to wear out the tyres. On to driver speed through pit lane already now. Giebler, Hancock, Andrew Kosick, Mark Kruger, Tim Wire all had damage that they decided they wanted fixed. Charles Kowalczyk as well.
So interestingly, at the front, things might not be quite as dire as they seem. This is only lap 2, but last time by, Alex Albert and Simon Fowether were running right on pace with Mark Mccormick. So maybe he took a lot using the tires as hard as he did in those first few laps. 4th lap, time flies.
Yeah, it's pretty compact layout around here. We're doing lap times in the 139s, 140s. Compare that to around the full layout of VIR. We're a lot closer to 2 minutes 20, 2 minutes 30 kind of lap times. So the laps come around quickly. Later on in the race, that might mean we lead to a little bit more lap traffic. In fact, we're kind of matching the Laguna Seca lap times around here as well. Actually, a similar enough length of layout.
Another little battle pack kind of forming up here is the one that is being chased by Nick Love. Nick Love's starting to put the moves on Greg Vandervert, and he actually put the bumper on Vandervert that time through 7A and B. And as they head to 11-12 here, I got to think that he's going to try and put a move on Vandervert. And Vandervert gets pushed a little bit offline. Nick Love tries to dive back underneath him. Gets compromised a little, though. Nick Love, of course, qualified in 4th, but he's going to be trying to make up ground here. This is do the best with what you got now at this point for him.
Yeah, that early contact at the museum turn has put him a bit deeper in the field than his pace would otherwise suggest. I believe he won Long Beach in this car, so he was strong in the MX-5 there at Street Circuit. This has some characteristics similar to a street circuit, and the pressure on Vandervert sees Vandervert go wide. That then becomes the inside for this long right-hander, and brave is the man who thinks he can get around the outside. Nick Love is probably going to have to think about down the inside at 5. If he can get there, he's looking for it. He's at the rear bumper, and he'll probably be able to make this one work.
Yeah, he's got he definitely had the run for it there, and he cleanly takes the inside curb there, bounces it over it, and I really think that's the right way to do it. If I was out there with these guys, I'd be taking that inside tire and dipping it on the inside of that curb. This car really takes the curbs well.
With that battling, though, it's let Scott Grinnell and Josephinek get a little further away. Though that said, he's immediately up towards Grinnell.
Yeah, and even with that sort of challenging traffic in front of him, we know that he's got the pace to run the 140s, though hard to say if the car is still 100%.
And still all action over second and third place as well. Fowether has not been letting McCormick get away, but Albert right behind, obviously still looking for some different lines, looking for a way past. What would you do in his shoes? Are you looking to get past Fowether as quickly as possible and get up to the lead, or is there's something to be said for holding station and maybe not wearing down the tires as aggressively so early? Track temperature about the same as it was at the end of qualifying.
Light definitely looks like it's coming down, and honestly, they're not losing any time on it. So if I'm Alex Albert, thinking about the points, thinking about the big picture, I might just try and save a little bit extra, because if you can save 3, 4, 5 seconds in that pit stop because you took a half gallon less fuel or a gallon less fuel, that's going to be a big difference.
I'm also thinking to deeper into this stint, what might the race pace look like? We know that it drops off the longer they get through the stint, and particularly this setup, this track, this car, they wear out those fronts, trying to go through the really long corners, trying to brake and turn at the same time into some of the hairpins and such here.
Well, for me, I really think that these hairpins on the back straight are responsible for a lot of the fall off that we see, because not only are they high speed corners, they're scrubbing a lot on the fronts. And so you get a car that tends to understeer the longer you do it. And when it's a momentum car like this, you cannot abide that understeer.
Yeah, I'm thinking turns 2 and 3, and then also the final sector here where there's kind of, 3 consecutive right-handers. You're trying to, they're on the brakes, they're off the brakes, they're trying to figure out how to roll the speed through there and keep the car rotating to bring it back to a tight apex through the penultimate corner, and therefore get speed off the last corner onto the pit straight, where the leaders are right now. Technically turns 2 and 3, but to me it kind of feels like one big continuous corner.
A little bit of contact deeper in the field. Peter Zhang just got, I got to say, he got dumped by John Patterson, I think, or maybe it was David Palermo that time as they were heading through the last corner. Looked like that 8 car just rolled towards a gap that wasn't quite there, and boom, hits him right on the rear quarter panel. Sends him turned around. He gets it going back straight again, but that bumper's a little bit worse for wear. And he's now racing with Andrew Cossack as he heads down into turn number 1.
Your biggest problem is never going to be just the damage on the bumper. It's going to be that suspension on the right rear. If that's been tweaked around, that'll cost you big time in the speed. Mm-hmm. You're kind of hoping that what the bumper's there for, it took most of the hit, not the corner and not the suspension.
Conversely, with this old damaged model car, as we see the lights come on, with this old damaged model car, that bent bumper can be worth a mile or 2 an hour on the straightaway sometimes. And so getting that damage can be a big impact on your race in terms of pace, though these cars do have a fast repair, if I recall correctly.
I think they do, yep.
Yeah, getting darker out here, though. As I mentioned, the lights have come on, and once we get a little deeper into the evening, it'll be really quite interesting to see who knows the track the best, because there's not a ton of lights out here.
Well, Simon Fowether is a local, and he's been closing in on Mark McCormick, almost back within the 1 second there. Albert now a second back, didn't have a perfect lap last time around, and Fowether was the fastest driver on track. So I believe of English extraction, making his home in Alabama these days, Simon Fowether.
Yeah, another one of those guys with plenty of laps around here, if he's home in Alabama. And
Back
we've
within a
gotten
second for the lead. Back within a second now for the lead. That's kind of critical. McCormick hasn't built out a big gap now. The exit of turn 7, McCormick got a better run than Fowether, but Fowether very confident in what's got to be one of the most difficult braking zones there, where you've got to hop across the curbs. It's called 7A and 7B, and you are braking while trying to straight line as much as you can of that chicane.
Yeah, it's almost doing it. I got to say, it's almost like when they used to tell you to sort of brake and then release in rough conditions to try and avoid that ABS lockup, or sorry, that lack of ABS that you would get back in the day. It's almost like that, because you have to have a whole bunch of brake pressure, hit the curb, release a bunch of brake pressure, and then get right back on it as soon as you get at the bottom of the hill there.
It would be interesting to see exactly what the brake trace looks like through there, because I think you're right. They sort of get on it quite significantly right at the start. You've got to roll off it a little bit as you come across the curb, back on it again, and then roll off it a little bit again as you turn into the hairpin of 7B. So lead gap 0.8. There's a couple places around here Fowether will start be picking up the slipstream, especially that back straight where we know the first chicane is absolutely flat out for these cars, so it might as well be one longer back straight. There's other cars where it's not flat out through there. I'm thinking older generation of Porsche Cup car, definitely thinking maybe Indy car and some other things, but for these machines, flat out through there. Oh, these guys are taking so much of 7A.
Yeah, speaking with some of the other drivers, there's a lot of time there, but there's also a lot of risk there. And if you roll just a bit too much speed, you'll do what Alex did on the first lap, put 2 tires on the grass on the outside, maybe even 4, and that compromises you so badly for the rest of the back straight. Alex Albert, though, speaking of him, cannot keep pace. He is dropping back from these guys, and he's going to need to find something if he wants to challenge for the win, a win that he very desperately needs, with the two of them being tied in the points.
Have you got that up to scratch? We've had 14 rounds so far, and I think McCormick has by far and away the most wins. Maybe not the same consistency, maybe not appearing quite as often, but for the races that he has arrived at, he's had a pretty good strike rate.
Yeah, 10 rounds for Mark McCormick, 6 wins, 6 poles. Alex Albert, same amount of points, 13 rounds, but he's had only 3 wins and 1 pole. And so with those kinds of stats, the tiebreaker going right now to Mark McCormick, Alex Albert needs to get some wins if he wants to have a shot at this points championship. And Mark McCormick, well, he just needs to keep doing what he's doing, because every time he shows up, 60% of the time, it works every time.
Well, he's going to have to work for it here at Barber by all accounts, because Fowether still just closing him in a little bit. Is this better, longer run pace for Fowether? Is Fowether more comfortable as the light drops? Because, of course, there was no practice or qualifying in the dark here. Is McCormick still just trying to preserve something so he can push harder around that time of the pit stops, whenever that might be? They could go early, they could go a little deeper into the race, but yeah, your in-lap and your out-lap being quick could be critical as well.
Yeah, I'm with Mark McCormick sitting for as much qualifying as he did too, he tends to be pretty well practiced up for these events, so I got to think that he practiced the pit entry a whole bunch, but who knows, maybe he's a little bit rusty. Simon Fowether uses all the track there, and then a bit more, 2 tires off on the exit of turn 11.
Carries a lot of speed through the middle and then back onto the brakes for the right-hander, all the way to the right-hand side of the road to maximize this left-hander. Is he going to just kiss the grass, and he's within 4/10 of the lead? Once he got within that second, he just keeps clawing away at McCormick. Fowether, who was running in the lead at Long Beach, hasn't had a win this season. I don't think has had a win at all. I think he'd like one.
Yeah, I was going to say he's had more than a few races where he's finished very well, or been in the running for the win and then been just cleaned out by something that wasn't his fault, whether it was lap traffic or an ambitious overtake gone wrong. He's been on the wrong end of a few of those, and I really think that he'd like to take this one home. Points race be damned.
And another one of those confusing liveries where it's a Mazda MX-5 BMW E30. running a tribute to its iRacing, who I know he did quite a lot of ChampCar racing with. So that's the reason for the BMW Motorsport colours.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a tantalising second for the lead. Pressure on there. Some other battles further on as well. I'm seeing for 5th. I'm seeing for 7th. Where should the attention be right now, Devin?
Well, speaking of BMW liveries, we got or faux BMW liveries. We got Thomas Ellison running that number 27 cars, chasing down John Hurley and Keith Carlson for 4th and 5th. These three have been kind of going at it. Thomas Ellison, not a regular in the series, but showing that this is his home track. And of course, commentators curse he misses that apex by about 7.5 car widths, but he comes down the front straight away and is sort of showing his pace out here today. And he's got about 9 seconds on Nick Love, but Nick Love has been taking a little bit of time out of them. So we reported on Nick Love trying to get through that pack of cars earlier, and with a little help from his teammates getting out of the way, he's managed to clear that one, and now he's just towing Shane Cameron, who's in 8th place, towards the front of the field.
I don't know if I just didn't make my coffee strong enough today, but I swore you were going to say Shane Cameron, who's in 8th grade. I don't know. I really don't know. But good battle here, honestly, between Carlson and Hurley and Ellison, because Ellison's been keeping the pressure on Hurley, but both of them have caught Keith Carlson pretty significantly over the last 2 or so laps. So I wonder if Carlson's maybe running out of tyres here.
Could very well be, and we are across the field seeing times drop off. And at the front of the pack, that looks like about 8/10, and I'd say pretty consistently all the way through 8/10 to up to 1.2 seconds off the pace that we saw in qualifying for these guys. So tire management, as we kind of alluded to, going to be a big factor along with managing that undercut.
And then thinking that the strategy might be driven by the tyres as much as the fuel running out, might there be some people in battles like this who think, I'm going to pit just a little early, try to undercut these guys, and then trust that it's more difficult to pass at Barber than at some other tracks? You think some of the more flat out ones like Sebring and Road America in the calendar, passing probably a little easier than here at Barber. That's kind of always the, IndyCar and Formula One strategy kind of thing. You want to pit early, get that track position, and then try to hold on to it more than be in a position to have to try to make passes late in the race.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I'd say that overtaking in cars with downforce like Indy cars is actually a little bit easier around here. But in these momentum cars, the corners are all so cambered and so tricky to get around that there kind of tends to be only one line, especially in the really high speed stuff. So you don't see as much side-by-side racing. It's really just that game of inches, getting a little momentum, getting a little bit of extra pace down the straightaways that you tend to see at this kind of track. For our chess aficionados out here, this is the chess game of racing, for sure.
Hurley doing well, closing up on Carlson here. Big differentiator that you see with the group and the confidence is in the final sector here. Much tighter entry there, but then still rolling it back to a tight apex for Hurley. It's that front left tire that is most at risk here on the clockwise circuit.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a couple corners here that just eat that tire alive. The second turn, that big right-hander that continues forever, and then of course the second to last turn number 15, or 14 rather, where they're rolling that right-hander forever and just leaning on it. So seeing both of those and seeing how that will eat those tires up. So
part of the track where the slipstream's most evident, and Hurley gets Sorry, they're not there yet, but they're at turn 5, where again, a tighter line and good speed off the corner for Hurley, right to the rear bumper of Carlson. The tight and single line entry to 7 here makes it more difficult to pass. In fact, in these cars, you can see they're turning into the corner before they even step on the brakes. So, yeah, always difficult to get down the inside there. And the time that Hurley tried on Nick Love caused a bit of an incident. And speaking of, Nick Love has just made his pit stop. Looked relatively scheduled. So I think he's just decided, go early on those tires. Stop time 23.3.
It does look like the drop off has kind of plateaued around that 6 tenths to 1 second mark. So, I mean, at this point, if you can get in a little bit early and make up some ground, it might be the right move. John Hurley makes a move up the inside here. Speaking of moves, gets real close, but gives up a bunch of momentum. Thomas Ellison is going to now have an opportunity on him, and sure enough, he goes by on the inside, carrying a little bit more speed. We'll see if that draft is enough to make up for the speed that Tom Ellison was able to carry. Barely clears John Hurley down the straightaway, and that's a spot for Tom Ellison, 5th place now, and staring forwards at Keith Carlson. You got to think. Oh, John Hurley dummies him into the second turn. That was awesome.
Wow, good stuff between these guys. I thought Hurley had made a mistake at the end of the last lap. Ellison got around him, but now Hurley, oh wow, didn't want to give up on that one. Is Ellison still going to look down the inside 5? He's not, but then will he again? No. Oh, good stuff here over 4th, 5th, and 6th. Still close for 1st and 2nd. In fact, really close for 1st and 2nd.
Yeah, I was going to say, last time by, it was 8 tenths. This time by, it was 5 tenths. And all of a sudden, Simon Fowether is right on the bumper of Mark McCormick. I really think that he's doing the first half of this track better than Mark McCormick is. And then Mark McCormick's taking a little bit out of Fowether on the back half. But, you know, riding in second place, that's a catbird seat sometimes. And I think Simon's starting to learn a little bit here as we get deeper into this race.
Not incredibly dark yet, but you know over the next half an hour it will. And very often, being the second car in line here, in the dark, you have a lot more visibility. It's almost using the car in front as extra lighting.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go off track, you know, oh, that was too much.
In case you were looking back down the straightaway, you'll see that Alex Albert is just that little flicker of headlights in the background, nearly 6 seconds behind, nearly 7 seconds behind that time at the line. He's eating those tires alive, and he doesn't seem to have a hope. So Mark McCormick and Simon Fowether, they're driving away, and going to gain points no matter what. You got to think.
Carlson on the lane, so I think that's how Hurley and Ellison got past. Is Keith Carlson's decided to pit a little early, still 5 minutes away from halfway in this race. But for Keith Carlson, I'm watching this one closely. Definitely left side tires, and I reckon it's that front left that is the most important, the critical tire to your performance here. And he might be going only left sides for Carlson, because then the car is back down flat, fueling, and still waiting for Keith Carlson. This is a stop longer than it needs to be. Now he's away.
Yeah, that was
an extra gallon.
Yeah, it almost must have been an extra gallon. Nick Love's coming down the front straightaway at full speed while Carlson's just trundling out of the pits. We'll see how that lines up. Carlson did have a fair advantage beforehand. What's it going to look like at this point?
Yeah, Carlson's 2 seconds ahead of Zhang, who hasn't stopped by my graphic. Ahead of Shane Cameron, who stopped and had quite a short stop as well. I think probably no tires there. And then Cubitt and Love back behind that. Okay, so this is going to be really interesting on some of that strategy here.
Yeah, it seems like left side tires, or one side of tires anyway, is going to be free, and having both sides of tires is gonna cost you a little bit if you're getting the right amount of fuel. Just got to give a little bit of props to the race organizers here. It's tough to get that ratio exactly right, and we seem to hit it pretty often in this ChampCar series. But yeah, that's going to be a factor for sure as these guys are lining up the pit stop strategy. McCormick and Fowether are still glued together at the front, and they're heading into turn number 7 right now, downhill, where Fowether seems to gain all the time in the world. Man,
Absolutely, he does, almost at the bumper there, and he does still make that turn 7B very well. And he'll be in the slipstream here at that part of the track where it is the strongest. Tough to then overtake at the end here, but it's definitely in place, keeping pressure on. Oh, is this a look? This is a very aggressive look from Fowether, and I think McCormick just rolls over and gives Simon Fowether the lead of the race there. Is it coming up to pit stop time for either of these? We'll wait and see, but Fowether to the lead now, catching Mark McCormick, taking a look, making a move. Both of them stay out, no pit entry for them just yet, so Fowether will get scored in the lead of the race.
If I'm Mark McCormick, I almost want to see what Fowether's doing through that turn in the downhill there. And Fowether has to watch out because McCormick's going to bump draft him down the front straightaway.
Wow, Alex Albert from third is going to pit, so he's looking for an undercut potentially to try to claw back that 4 or 5 seconds he was behind these battling leaders. That's kind of his last hope for the win here, unless he somehow races a lot better in the dark than everyone else does. John Hurley's also on the lane, so I got to watch. Albert, right-hand side of the car's going up.
And right-hand side is first if you select all 4.
Now here comes the left.
On the other hand, John Hurley got left side up first. Got to think he's only doing left side tires.
Oh, I think that might have been fronts only from Albert. I'm not sure, but it's 21 seconds and he's back out, and he's going to have to hope that whatever new rubber is on there is going to give him, a second a lap for the next 4 or 5 laps if he's going to be in contention.
Well, and we did hear some speculation about kind of alternative strategies like that from the drivers. We're running the iRacing baseline on this car, which is, a perfectly serviceable setup. But if you take those fresh tires only on the front, it can have a pretty significant effect on the balance. And if these guys are suffering from some understeer, that might just be what the doctor ordered.
So Fowether and McCormick through the final contact in the final corner, and that's going to cost Fowether big time.
That whammo car just cleans Simon Fowether out. Oh, man. Heartbroken for Simon Fowether there. That's got to be the 3rd or 4th time this season that he's been wrecked out of the lead. And what's more, that car is bent. That is not driving straight down the straightaway. That right rear tire has a bunch of toe that it didn't have before. I got to wonder, does Mark McCormick's car have any damage too? Because that was a real solid hit.
I was thinking maybe one of them was going for pit entry, but then they both try to make the corner. It almost, I don't know. Don't know what to read into that other than was Fowether a little slow? Was McCormick clearly a little too ambitious there? Wow.
Oh,
wow, that is big.
Tough. Yeah, that's real tough. These are big points and big dollars. But Fowether did check himself up a little bit in the middle of the corner. Now, I'm sure if you're Fowether, you're going to argue that's the regular racing line. McCormick, though, kind of dives to the inside, rolls a little faster through the inside, and makes the contact. So that's hard. That's tough. Meanwhile, though, Alex Albert's got to be the winner in all this because, he didn't spend 3 seconds facing the wrong way there. Unfortunately for him, he's got a fair bit of traffic up ahead in the form of Scott Grinnell, Charles Kowalczyk, and Jay Sofianek.
Yeah, he has to either get past those guys quickly or hope that they pit before he catches him, because he's had a good couple laps here as Alex Albert, but that run could come to a close.
McCormick hits a bit.
Yep. And on 5 Simon Fowether, you've got a pit as well, right? Surely? And he's in as well. So where will Albert be compared to them? What service are they going to take?
Yeah, absolutely.
Polstead and McCormick is going to have to go the whole length of the pit lane to find his pit crew. But that means you know where they are and have a very quick run off the pit lane as well.
Yeah, and honestly, if that has made enough of a difference for Alex to be within, chasing range of Mark McCormick, these 3 cars ahead of him might actually play a bit of a vanguard for him because they'll be in the way when the other guys come out of the pits. One of them peels off.
Front left only from McCormick, and he is out after a pretty quick 18-second stop.
Ooh, that is quick. The fastest one we've seen today.
Fowether 1 second quicker than that. So where's Grinnell and Albert? Side by side with Charles Kowalczyk.
And Fowether's just ahead of Alex Albert, but Alex Albert's having to fight off the battle from Charles Kowalczyk, who, 21st place in a lap down, might not realize exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, wow. So golden opportunity for Alex Albert, kind of gone begging there because he's in third. Fowether's just up in front of him in second, but Mark McCormick, a 7.5 second lead. Is that tyre choice going to hold up? It was obviously the front left only for McCormick. I didn't quite catch Fowether, but we know Albert, the left and the right side, went up. So we might have a pretty repeat situation to Laguna Seca, a leader trying to hold on to their advantage, some slightly quicker cars that spent longer in pit lane charging.
Be very interesting to see, because we did see that sort of pace advantage you get from the tires drop off pretty quickly. So if that front left tire can even provide 7/10 of the benefit that 4 tires provides, then that might easily be enough. But on the other hand, we see Simon Fowether go all 4 off. Hopefully that wasn't a slowdown for him. But Fowether is going to be driving with the red mist, and Alex Albert right behind him might benefit from a little bit of the draft that he wasn't able to benefit from earlier.
So very few cars yet to pit. They are Grinnell, Vandervert, Aaron Thorpe, Jonathan Patterson, and Peter Zhang. But I think they'll have to when their fuel runs out in a couple laps. We'll have a corrected picture on where we stand in this final stint and this sprint to the end. Now Grinnell's in.
John Hurley, on the other hand, is still dealing with some of that lap traffic. John Hurley lining up Greg Vandervert here for what looks like 4th place. Vandervert hasn't pit, and it shows as Hurley sucks right up to his bumper and then takes the inside line. That car clearly more maneuverable on the fresh tires. Gets the power down better too, and he's going to clear on easily.
Kind of similar to what he did to Tom Ellison in that sector as well, except I think an even more noticeable pace difference puts Hurley back up into 4th.
Speaking of Tom Ellison, he's actually managed to put himself in front of Keith Carlson. He was battling with him earlier, as well as John Hurley, but it looks like Ellison and Carlson took that pretty substantially longer fuel stops. Hurley 17 seconds, Ellison 23, Keith Carlson 29 seconds. So big differences in terms of how much fuel they felt like they needed to put on board the car, or how many fresh pieces of rubber they felt like they needed. Speaking of, Alex Albert is rolling up on Simon Fowether with some fresh pieces of rubber, and really showed in the fast parts of the course. He had dropped back a little through the early section of the track, and now was able to make up a fairly large amount, I'd say half a second to a second, through the back half of the track with that fresh tires.
And we get our first flying laps since they all took their pit stops. 140.4 for McCormick, 140.3 for Fowether, 140 flat for Alex Albert. So it is a real accordion at the front with about 15 laps to go. Fowether needs to be half a second a lap or more faster to try to catch McCormick the way they're going. What kind of traffic are we maybe going to encounter now that we're deeper into this race, more field spread, and like we said, a shorter lap here than some other circuits?
Well, Alex Albert and Simon Fowether are going to have to get by Tim Wire and likely Peter Zhang and Jared Cubitt in the next few laps. Peter Zhang will be an interesting one too, because Mark McCormick is behind him as well at this point, and Zhang has shown his fair share of pace earlier in this race. As I alluded to earlier, up 14 positions at the start of the race. He's fallen off for sure, but we know that he's got the pace to make a difference, and so depending on how easy he makes it for Mark McCormick, that could be a factor. Going back a little bit further, John Hurley is going to have to deal with the likes of Charles Kowalczyk. Kowalczyk didn't make it easy for Alex Albert. And then behind him, we've got Greg Vandervert in fifth, dispatching easily Andrew Kosick in that Mosiman car. Still bent up from some of that contact early in the race, and I got to think that Kosick's just making the best of it. 7 laps down and looking for an entry in that $1,500 door prize.
And I neglected to, cover that off at the top of the broadcast, Devon. Would you do me the favor this round?
Well, I'll have you know that not only is there a $1,500 prize for first place that Mark McCormick and Alex Albert are currently fighting for, but also there's about, I think the number is 16 people that are still eligible for the participation prize. That's right. In order to win another $1,500 in ChampCar iRacing credit, all you have to do is show up for 12 of the 16 races and complete 50% of the race distance. That's easy. You were probably going to do that on the sim anyways. So make the investment, show up to the league. We race mostly with free cars and on a variety of paid and free tracks. And you get a great ROI, better than Bitcoin, going from maybe a $200 initial investment out to a $1,500 in champ bots.
So Greg Vandervert, I think we saw pitting. He was the last driver to pit. Thank you, Devon, by the way. And that means the top 10 looks like Mccormick, still 7.5 seconds clear of Fowether. Alex Albert is right with. Then you've got a fair chunk of time there to John Hurley in 4th. Behind him, Ellison and Carlson still battling for 5th and 6th. Cameron and Love are battling for 7th and 8th. So I think the charge and the fight back from Nick Love is still on. He might be looking for one more spot. Then Jonathan Patterson, big move up, plus 14 spots in this one, is holding on to 9th from Jason Fianek, rounding out the top 10. So Cameron is going to be have that fire lit underneath him at the moment, I think.
And Mark McCormick just had to do some real fancy driving to get through the lap traffic there. He came up on Jared Cubitt and Peter Zhang right at the same time. And Jared Cubitt jumped out of the way, and then Peter Zhang jumped out of the way into turn 1 and into turn 2. But it was not a sure thing at any point through there. I would have been holding my breath as I was going through those corners, that's for sure. But he's clear, and looking up the road, he's clear for 15 or 20 seconds. David Warden and David Palermo, the only things between him and the end of this race, it looks like.
So times all staying pretty steady for our top 3 between Cameron and Love. Nick Love is still looking for a way around and is so much more confident on the brakes in some places. But again, tough to pass at Barber if the driver in front doesn't make a big mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Love will have the benefit of some draft here, though. And I feel like he's been getting a better run through this section of the track. Didn't nail it that time. It's so blind through that section. You really have to be doing it on timing and on feel. Know how fast you're hitting the corner, know how much brake you need to put, and know how much you need to turn in the wheel, because it's tricky down that part.
Of course, that balance is changing the whole way through the race, not only through the first stint, but then we've seen all kinds of combinations of tire changes that adjust the balance and how pointy or how understeery the car was. And then, of course, that then keeps changing all through this stint. So I don't think there's any 2 laps that are the same. Kosick is off the track to the left looking for pit entry, and that's quite a damaged Mintmobile.
Yeah, it's been a hard one for him. A couple different wrecks have put him facing the wrong way. And his car featuring that patented rear bumper bend that we see in this NC Miata once someone gives you one too many smacks of bump draft, or bumper in the corner.
Not hard to find the Armco around here, but I'm watching Nick Love. Great run towards turn 5. No defense from Shane Cameron. So is this where Love can be stronger on the brakes? The inside at the hairpin here. He's even later on the brakes, and he's on the inside, and he makes Devon's favorite little concrete curb, and I think that's a pretty textbook move by Nick Love.
Yeah, that looked easy enough. Speaking of easy enough, Keith Carlson's looking like he wants to make a move. Oh, and then he backs out of it. Of course, as I talk about it, backs out of it on the way into 7A. That was probably a wise move. There's not really two lines through there. But he does give up a fair bit to Thomas Ellison, and he'll have to look to time that run a little bit better the next time he gets it. For those wondering about the battle at the front of the field, things are pretty much unchanged. Mark McCormick still has about a 7.5 second lead, a lead that he's held ever since he and Simon Fowether came together. Fowether, on the other hand, is also starting to put a little bit of a gap on Alex Albert. Albert's trying to hold his own, but it really seems like he's using his tires a little bit harder than the guys in front of him to make the lap times. And so the two of them are drifting apart, 7/10 separating them. Alex Albert runs a little bit deep there. And they are going to shortly be dealing with the likes of Peter Zhang, who was very gracious and let Mark McCormick by with a wide berth. So we got to expect he'll do the same thing again once the two of them get caught up. Speaking of lappers, Mark McCormick in first place is going to be catching up with one of those shortly in the form of David Palermo. Palermo, the victim, no, I think the perpetrator, if I recall correctly, of an incident earlier in the race. He's running in about 17th place, the last car in the lead lap right now. And we'll see if he makes it easy or if he makes it interesting for Mark McCormick as McCormick tries to come by.
Those are the two options, easy or interesting. And I think McCormick is a little anxious about it because he didn't nail his normal line through the final corner, and that will have hurt him a little bit.
Yeah. Oh.
So Palermo was wide through one, but then there wasn't space for McCormick to carry his speed. Now he's had to come around the outside of two, and that's cost about half a second or maybe even a little more to McCormick.
Yeah, I think Palermo was trying to give it up, but I think that was more interesting than easy, if you ask me. And that will have cost him some time. He lost about 6/10 on that lap. Correction, about 3/10 on that lap to Simon Fowether. And Fowether, on the other hand, will be wondering exactly what Peter Zhang is going to do for him as he comes up on that brightly colored car of Peter Zhang.
You notice how dark it's getting as well? I've noticed just how dark it is starting to get.
Yeah, 15 minutes left. And, Zhang really parks it on the apex there. That's cost Simon some time.
Headlights are on, but you can't flash them in this car.
Oh, I think Simon Fowether's flashing them in the mirrors. I think he is. Might not have a stock to grab onto. Oh, and Zhang's not making it easy. He's squeezing him to the inside. When finally gives it up, but he's going to really compromise Alex Albert. Albert has to get hard on the brakes. And a little bit of contact anyway as Albert slides all four off track. Tries to make it up the inside. Woo. Interesting indeed.
Yeah, that is the Chinese proverb, isn't it? May you live in interesting times. Very, very tough for Fowether and Albert there, not being given much for free at all. In fact, I was worried that Zhang was putting himself in quite a dangerous spot. You know, between a lion and its meal.
As I say, motivated Alex and yeah. Meanwhile, speaking of interesting encounters, Thomas Ellison and Keith Carlson are starting to have a little bit of an interesting battle. The two of them separated by only a few tenths. Last time by, they were separated by 4/10, and this time I kind of think it's even going to be closer. Carlson's got a heck of a run. He almost bump drafted Tom Ellison that time. Ellison gets a much better entry into one, compromises himself into two, and manages to slam the door. Different approaches to the corner, like I talked about earlier, and these guys are really showing that off.
Carlson could be in a spot for down the inside at turn 5, and he's going to try for it. He's got just enough overlap to have the inside here. Around the outside, Ellison's trying to carry the momentum, but it just goes a little wide and he has to get out of the throttle. and that's going to move Carlson up into 5th. Tough for Ellison to come back at him here.
It's going to be tough. I got to think that Carlson's really hoping to kind of hold on to that 5th place in the points. He's had so many consistent finishes, 2 poles on the season. Sorry, no, looking at the wrong line. No poles yet on the season, but he's had a really consistent set of finishes, and he's competing with Justin Hall pretty closely for 4th place. So no prizes down that low, but certainly some pride on the line for Carlson after he showed up for every single round this season.
Can he get away from Tom Ellison in 5th? Not quite sure he can. Fowether's gotten away from Albert for 2nd. So they run at the moment though, so spreading out a little bit at the leading battles.
McCormick's had to make some evasive maneuvers there too as he got his way around Neil Hancock with a pretty bent-looking number 56 car there. And another.
I think the next place that's going to have some action is 12th and 13th here, because Ian Giebler pitted lap 2 for some of the damage. Very early stop. His tyres have gone longer than anyone else. They are going to be giving up. I think Troy Isidore is starting to catch him for that reason.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially on this back half of the track where you're really, front limited.
Quite a line through the end of the lap here for Isidore.
To be fair, this is a Miata, so you're pretty much always front limited.
Yeah, rear limited is for cars that have horsepower.
Miatas are all about that pony speed,
There's a Japanese word for that. I can't remember what it is.
Simon Fowether's having some excitement as he goes 3 wide with David Palermo and Jonathan Patterson. And Alex Albert's about to have an interesting time. He has to take it 2 wide on the straight. Oh my gosh! And he makes contact. Ooh, luckily he was able to hold on to that one. No time to waste though, and Palermo and Patterson getting a sense of what the differential looks like between 1st and 16th and 17th on the grid. That was some bold overtaking there from Alex Albert. The 2 of them are going to have to deal, Simon Fowether and Alex Albert are going to have to deal with Neil Hancock, but he was a little bit more polite, if I recall correctly. And Mark McCormick has successfully navigated more traffic. It's almost easier at this point because not only are the guys a little deeper in the field typically a little less confident in the dark, but they're also getting the blazing bright white reminder that you're coming up behind them with these iRacing headlights flashing off the inside of your roll cage, flashing off your mirrors. It can be a very memorable experience if you're not used to racing this late in the sim.
Yeah, someone catches you up and it is 10,000 lumens shining into your interior and lighting up every surface from your steering wheel to your gauges to everything. So you can tell when someone's back there. Through all of this traffic, Mark McCormick is still getting the slightly better rub of the green. He's extended the lead out to 8 seconds, and there's only 10 minutes left in this one as well. Fowether and Albert haven't been able to claw away at it, progressively or at all. Yeah,
Mark's just had the pace ever since that pit stop, and he's slowly widened the gap out. Fowether gains a little bit that time by about 7/10, but that's more traffic than anything else. And 7/10 a lap isn't going to cut it with only 9 minutes left to go.
Ellison's having a dig at Carlson. Nick Love is catching the both of them, so side by side for 5th is going to slow them up, cost them some time, and bring in Mr. Love Racing for a top 5 battle as well. Carlson off the road, way off the road, looking for the rejoin, losing speed. Ellison's going to look down the inside. Love is watching the both of them. Side by side through turn 1 can be difficult, and Ellison gonna bomb it down there. Can he get clear of Carlson? Not quite. Still too wide into 2 and 3. And Nick Love is looking for the tight line to get involved here as well.
And Thomas Ellison's going to clear Nick Love. Woo! And barely clears Keith Carlson there too. This is spicy. I think they're going to go 3 wide into this turn.
Well, Ellison's looking down the inside of turn 5. Love rolls out of the throttle and gets on the brakes very early. He just wants to watch what unfolds here between Ellison and Carlson, and the answer is they lean on each other a little bit on the exit of 5 through 6, and Carlson is going to have the inside for 7. Is Ellison going to yield around the outside? Surely he's going to have to. Otherwise, this will end in disaster, and he kind of does. He's wide of the first apex, and Carlson back through into 5th. Ellison into 6th, but we know Nick Love is pretty rapid here as well. Qualified 4th. Previous race winner in this car. Time running out for him to make these moves as well.
Yeah, 1.2 seconds faster than the two guys ahead of him last time by as well. Of course, they were battling, but oof.
So the part where I think the darkness has been hurting them a little bit, into that left there initially, I saw last lap Carlson and Ellison way away from the apex. Carlson out of shape on the exit across the grass. Means Ellison's going to come back at him as well. This is a good one. You know, we've seen Carlson and Ellison battling back and forth ever since their pit stops, you know, so for the last 12 laps or so. But Nick Love, and all the time he lost at the start of the race, he's making up for it now.
Things are looking interesting in those guys' future. Got some lap traffic coming up here too. It looks like Jared Cubitt's ahead of them.
Please, my nerves can't handle it.
I know my nerves would be shot after that little bit of racing they just did.
Ellison's looking a little vulnerable here. He's not quite as close up behind Carlson as he was earlier. There's an opportunity here for Love to really throw it down the inside at turn 5. You can see how deep on the brakes Ellison was as well, but I think Nick Love has done it again. Now he's in between the two, and his next target's going to be Carlson. Cubitt staying to the right-hand side of the road. Carlson through, Love through, Ellison through as well. Ellison's still looking down the inside at turn 7 there, but it's not going to work. Surely it's not going to work, and it's not.
Yeah, and that really cost him some time through there. That was the classic headlight dummy, though. You put yourself on the inside in the mirrors, and you make the guy think that you're a little closer than you are, because it's hard to judge when you're just looking at blinding headlights. But Nick Love gave him the room and still managed to keep the pace up and didn't lose anything. So well executed there, and we'll see if Nick Love has anything for Keith Carlson in the top 5 here before the end of the race.
Wow, Carlson way out of shape at that chicane at the end of the back straight, and now Love is right at his rear bumper. Is there more grip for Love to dive underneath here? Is there grip for Tom Ellison to do it? They're 3 cars within 3 car lengths once again as Carlson backs up Love into Ellison. Love bouncing over every bit of curb he can get his hands on, but he's not going to be quick enough down towards turn 1 for the move. Is he going to be good through 2 and 3? Once more, that seems to be where he's been making the passes lately. I said turn 5 for one of the most typical overtaking opportunities.
And Shane Cameron's making up some ground on these guys too. Now less than 2 seconds outside of this fight. If you're wondering, Tom Ellison, he's got the freshest tires. Keith Carlson's got the second freshest, and Nick Love, he's got the oldest. So 3 different sets of tires and 3 different tire strategies.
Here comes Ellison. Love down the inside, but he wasn't as far up as he was for some of the previous moves. And Carlson, as he's done before, holds it round the outside and will have the inside for 7, 7A, 7B. I don't think Nick Love's quite been able to complete that one unless he is absolutely gutsy, bordering on stupid, but he's not. He's looking to bring this one home. He's been in trouble before.
Speaking of gutsy, bordering on stupid, Thomas Ellison threw it down there, and he's now right on the bumper.
Well, for one of his few appearances this year, Tom Ellison's getting value for his money. A lot of entertainment out of his 60 minutes, and here is Love. Huge speed at the end of the straight, nowhere to go with it. Has to be careful that Tom Ellison is still there in the mirrors, looking to get back down the inside if he can, and it's cramping Nick Love's style. He's right to the rear bumper, looking to go wider. Ellison looking to throw it in there. Is going to compromise Love. They're going to rub on each other a little bit, and Tom is into the barrier.
Oh, tragedy for Thomas Ellison. And if you asked him, this is how every race ends. Racing hard, done really well, 50 minutes of consistent racing, and facing the wrong way with 3 minutes to go. Heartbreak for him, Keith Carlson, and Nick Love, not done yet.
It's 2.5 laps to go for the leader, 3 laps to go for the battle that we've been watching between Carlson and Love. Ellison ought to be able to carry on here. He's only lost out 1 spot to Shane Cameron. And so we read repping the pride of Alaska. So we've got many corners of the world represented here. You and I are stretching that out as well. But if we got
Nick
Plenty
Love
Club, New York,
and Keith
Carolinas.
Carlson. Yeah, as I say, Nick Love and Keith Carlson side by side again. Carlson holding that inside line down into 11A, or sorry, 8A. Manages to hold Nick Love off.
Carlson's had really good defense through that sector there as well. Just knowing that if he doesn't do anything silly around the outside of 5, he can hold the inside for 7.
Yeah, I've done a lot of laps around this track, but I'm really starting to gain a respect for how much a little bit of forethought can protect you at this track, because Carlson gives up in turn number 6 and gets it back in turn number 7 every single time. It seems like Nick Love's really going to have to find something different if he wants to get the lead in the next 2 laps.
What Love was trying to do was unsettle Carlson through the final 2 corners here and maybe be able to overtake him into turn 1, but last lap, Tom Ellison kind of ruined those plans by existing and being opportunistic, trying to get down the inside as Love tried to set up his wide apex. Now he's done it a little better this time. Before they even get to the start line, he's trying to pull up on Carlson. He's just looking down the inside, but again, this seems to be Carlson's speciality. If you're not all the way down the inside, he'll hold it around the outside, and bada bing, bada boom, he's got the inside for 2 and 3 again.
See those headlights getting closer though. Shane Cameron only a 1.5 seconds behind him that time by.
Again, Nick Love not able to get the run that he would have needed to be close enough to comprehensively make this move at 5. Only a minute left on the clock, and the white flag is going to be displayed for Mark McCormick very shortly. He's 9 seconds clear now of Fowether and Albert. The way the championship points work counts your 12 best results from the 16 rounds. So at this point late in the championship, it's kind of, win it or don't even bother for McCormick and Albert.
Spicy stuff out here all the way through. Alex Albert 1.1 seconds behind. Traffic in front of him and Fowether. A lot of it too. John Patterson and Greg Vanvert, who have not made it easy.
Love is still right to the rear bumper of Carlson. Oh, now Love's caught a little bit of the grass through the penultimate corner. That's dropped him back a little bit, and as they start the final lap, that might be just what saves Keith Carlson. Shane Cameron closing the both of them as well.
Okay, well, we got to get with Simon Fowether here. He's lining up a move on Jonathan Patterson and Greg Vandervert as they head into 7A, but he doesn't have enough to clear him on the straightaway. Got to think he's got a faster line. He's going to pay for it. These are critical points here potentially for Alex Albert. If he can get something, 2 tires off for Alex Albert. If he can clear something, this could be a big difference, but I think that's going to cost him. We're on the final lap, and we're going to see Mark McCormick take this win, and I can't imagine Alex Albert getting that second place from Simon Fowether.
No, it doesn't seem likely. Through the final sector, Mark McCormick had pole. He really had to fight hard with Fowether. A little bit of contact there cost out Fowether, and then Mark McCormick hasn't been challenged for the lead since. He's had really strong pace after the pit stop through this final stint, and he is going to extend his winning ways and take the championship lead with 1 round now to go. Mark McCormick looks like he's taken the checkered flag at Barber.
Nick Love still following close behind Keith Carlson, and that's a team car ahead of them, Charles Kowalczyk. Gotta wonder if that's going to be a factor.
Well, you'd really hope not. Top 3 now locked in, but they're still racing over these places here, jumping the curbs for Keith Carlson. Nick Love closer than he has ever been. He's going to have to try something. Is he going to look to the inside? Carlson surely will know to cover that off. Carlson does. Takes a narrower line than you otherwise would, and that means Love is looking around the outside to get to the inside of the final corner, and they are going to be door-to-door through the final corner. Carlson onto the grass, drag race to the end, and he's going to hold on to 5th, Nick Love in 6th, and Shane Cameron right behind them in 7th.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. I think Nick Love could have had something there if he had pushed a little bit harder, but he, I don't want to say he gave it up, but he gave plenty of racing room there for Keith Carlson at the end. Woo.
Only other 2 cars left to take the checkered flag. Jason Fianek and Tom Ellison will be the last car on the lead lap after he had to make a late stop to just get some repairs. It didn't look like he was going to make it to the end, I think, after the damage. And it is dark over Barber right now, just in time for the end of the race.
Add a little bit of snow and it'd feel like the real thing.
Not much snow here, is there?
2 years ago, I think there was snowbanks on the outside of the track that kept him from racing, but needless to say, it was an exciting race online here, more exciting than not racing, I think, which is what they dealt with.
So let's look at the results then. Mark McCormick, the winner by about 8.5 seconds. It was pretty close for most of the race there, and 9.3 seconds away from the lead. Alex Albert completes the podium. The top 3, a class above everyone else almost, it seems. John Hurley in 4th, 40 seconds back. Then great battle we saw all the way to the end there. Carlson, Love, Shane Cameron, Jason Fianek up into 8th. Thomas Ellison 9th after 2 stops, and Aaron Thorpe completed the top 10. Ian Giebler was the last car on the lead lap. Troy Isidore, Greg Vandervert, David Warden, Scott Grinnell, Peter Zhang, Tim Wire, David Palermo, Charles Kowalczyk, Jared Kubert, the top 20, and Mark Kruger in 21st, only 1 lap off, 2 laps down for Jonathan Patterson. Andrew Kosick, we saw some pretty big damage on his car at points of the race, but he still completed more than half race distance, and that is getting pretty critical at this time in the championship. And I think the same is true for Neil Hancock, 14 laps down. That's more than 50% race distance. Joshua Soto and Lee Mullerman didn't take the start of the race.
Woo! Well, that sets up an interesting finish. Of course, the next round of the ChampCar iRacing Series going to Sebring in the Street Sox, which has been traditionally one of the cars that Alex Albert's a little bit stronger in and that Mark's had a little bit harder of a time with. So all is not lost, and it will be interesting to see what the points look like, keeping in mind that these guys get to drop their 4 worst results and keep their 12 best. You got to think Mark McCormick's got the edge with this his 7th win. But it'll be a real close one. I got to think in that last round.
Yeah, still absolutely in the balance. And the forum post, forum.champcar.org in the ChampCar iRacing section, I'm sure we'll get updated with the point standings, because it will be oh so close, and it'll all get decided at Sebring. We won't have to wait long, just 2 weeks' time, November 17th. But now, I think the adrenaline's still running pretty hot for our drivers, but they're standing by for us to have a chat with them. I'll grab... You know what? Let's flip things around, Devin. How about you grab Alex Albert?
I've managed to find Alex Albert here, and after an hour of racing into the dark at Barber Motorsports, you end up in 3rd place. How's that feel?
Obviously we wish we could have finished better, but probably about what we deserved. Simon and Mark had a pace advantage through all the sessions, and tried to keep up with them, give them a bit of a race there at the beginning, but I just wasn't able to hang on. So 3rd, I think, is about the best we could do. Might have been able to get Simon there. It looked like in the green room I found out he had a little bit of bad luck around the pit stops, and then he had some trouble there. Some of the lappers weren't heeding to the blue flags, so I thought I might get him, but Simon just had a little bit too much pace for me this weekend. I think he's got a lot of laps around here. Pretty sure this is home track.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. But yeah, solid race for you, and it looked relatively uneventful. A couple lappers like you mentioned, but anything we missed out there looked like it was pretty calm for you.
Yeah, pretty calm race. I think I only had contact with one car while we were lapping there in turn one, and thought he was getting out of the way, and we talked, and I think he just maybe didn't get out of the way enough. He was trying to get out of the way. So, overall, it was a good race. Not. I don't think anyone should be upset with me, and I'm not upset with anyone. Just wish we could have got a few more points, but we got another round still, and anything's possible.
Yeah, well, and speaking of the points, you were tied with Mark coming into this one, and you got to think that he's taking a little bit of an edge, knowing how these things work. Sebring in the street stock next. Are you feeling good about that?
I'm okay at Sebring. I wouldn't say it's one of my best tracks. I do really enjoy the street stock, but we won a race earlier this year in Florida in the street stock, so hopefully we can do it again. Mark's a good driver, so I'm sure he'll show up and give me plenty of competition. And the rest of the field, it's hard to say. It might not be either of us that wins in a couple weeks.
Well, props to you for a solid race, and anyone you need to shout out today and thank.
Oh man, I'm just so gassed after that. I guess I just want to thank all the competitors for continuing to come out, and look forward to seeing everyone at the track here next month. Be at VIR North and at Barber. So if you're going to be at either of those races, stop by and say hi. Yeah.
Well, props to you, man, and thanks for another great race.
Yeah, thanks to you guys. Cheers.
Thanks for that as well, Devin. Let's move on up the podium. Second place man, Simon Fowether. I've got him. Well, another really strong race for you in this Mazda MX-5, but another time falling just short of that victory. How'd you enjoy today?
It was good fun. I had a good race with Mark. I felt pretty comfortable behind him. We were just talking how strong the draft is. But it was pretty easy to keep up. I think if I didn't have the draft, I'd have struggled. But it's just unfortunate that we came together. I think Mark was trying to pit in when I was turning, was it turn 15? And we collided, so it was a bit unfortunate. And I was slightly past the pit in at that point, so I kept on going, but my car was in pretty bad shape, so I think I lost quite a bit of time on that lap after. And took 2 tires on the left side, but Mark was, I think, 7 or 8 seconds ahead, so at that point it was just trying to hold second from Alex.
Very good result nonetheless. Barber, always a pretty exciting track it seems. Any sort of home advantage there?
Yeah, it's my home track. So I've raced there a whole bunch. Done some track days, so I'm pretty familiar with it. So I think that probably helps some. And it's nice to be back on the podium after a problematic summer.
Are folks going to see you at Barber later this year?
Hopefully. Yeah, that's going to be the plan.
Well, that's good to hear. Congratulations again, second place, and really running with the leaders for a lot of time there, including leading some laps. So hang your hat on that one.
All right, cheers, guys. Appreciate what you do. See you next time.
Thanks so much. Well, there's one person left, Devin, and you can speak to race winner, championship leader, Mark Mccormick.
Hey, Mark. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good now.
Looked like a great race out there. You set a real fast time in qualifying, and then you had the pace of the field for the whole race by the looks of things.
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to say I'm really sorry to Simon. I was trying to enter the pits, and I thought I could go around his outside, and by the time I realized that wasn't going to work, it was way too late to slow the car down, so that was a pretty big bummer. And worst of all, we probably could have raced the entire, we would have been back and forth the whole time, so bummer there.
Yeah, absolutely. But it looked like things panned out pretty well for you there.
Yeah, a little boring, I guess, from a viewership perspective, but I guess we don't have that many viewers, do we?
Oh, we picked more than 10 today.
Oh, double digits. Look at us go. The draft, man, it was like blowing my mind. Simon said he was just cruising behind me. I was trying so hard to run away, couldn't get away, and he was just clawing his way up to me. And when that one lap I did have behind him, I feel like I couldn't use the throttle at all. Like I was going to hit the guy. So the draft was just nuts.
These NC Miatas are classically cars that really tend to benefit from the draft. Well, that's a great finish for you, though. And coming into this race, of course, tied in the points for Alex Albert, and 6 wins, now 7. Looks like you need just one more great finish to lock this thing up, as well as the $1,500 prize. How are you feeling about the next round there, street stocks at Sebring?
I do like Sebring. I love the Sebring 12-hour, doing that in GT3 every year. Like the track. So hopefully I'll be able to do well. I won't have a lot of practice because we'll be out of town. So hopefully it's enough for me to wrap this thing up. I would love to get the prize.
Hey, man. And remind me, if you win that prize, do you have anywhere in particular that you're planning to go?
Well, I was thinking of, stuff like Road Atlanta, Daytona, Sebring even. But I don't know. Barber's growing on me. I didn't know the track until a couple weeks ago. We had to learn it for IRA GT Sprint Series. So it's pretty new to me, and it's a lot of fun once you get to know it and go fast.
It really did seem like it. It seemed like you had to deal with a few folks that were causing you trouble out there today. Some lappers. Anything to report on that front?
Just some unexpected behaviors or overslowing, or I don't have like experience running with these guys and this combo, so sometimes I wouldn't expect them to overslow going into turn 1, and I would almost hit them. I'd have to jump on the brakes. So just little weird stuff like that, but no contact other than me being an idiot and ruining Simon's race. So not too bad.
Well, cheers to that. Great race out there, great finish, and a great season so far. Anyone you need to thank for your race today?
You guys, of course, my family, my wife for putting the kids to bed so I could be here trying to qualify. Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Cheers to you.
Well, great to hear from our podium, and great that we are shaping up towards a very tense, potentially very closely fought championship finale in 2 weeks. Not too late for anyone to join the championship if they want to race with us. forum.champcar.org, all the information about how you can race, about the technicalities, etc., of the prizes and the great prizes we are going to be giving away in 2 weeks' time. Of course, we'll be covering that here on HJBC. We'll have a live broadcast and hopefully a ChampCar iRacing Series champion to crown in 2 weeks. What a very, very good race we had from Barber. Action all 60 minutes. And it has just ratcheted up the pressure in the championship fight. Mark McCormick goes to the lead. I've been David Haynes, Devin Peters with me, and our infatigable producer, Michael Derby. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Street stocks at Sebring.